As part of the Toyo Tyres MSA British Rallycross Championship, there are plenty of support categories, and one that always delivers big thrills is for the RX150s. These 1000cc motorbike engine buggies always deliver plenty of action, with Chrissy Palmer the man to beat. Enough this weekend for two semi-finals. Chrissy Palmer, the man in charge. John Ward has been second across the three qualifying rounds behind Palmer, and he's the major thorn in his side. Semi-final one, about to get underway. Chrissy Palmer on pole, with him at the front, Brett Harris and Stephen Jones. There's Mitchell Flaherty and Georgia Shields on the second row of the grid. Adam Sargent missing at the back as Chrissy Palmer storms away. Adam Sargent, I'll tell you a lie, is there. The orange buggy is that of Adam Sargent, so there is one missing. But as they work their way through Chestons Drift for the first time, continuity is restored at the head of the field. Chrissy Palmer leads the way. We've not had a winner of a final other than Chrissy Palmer for over 12 months in RX150s, and you can see why. Chrissy, former Formula Ford Festival winner, Formula Ford racer, Mazda champion. He turned his attention to RX150s a few seasons back and has been absolutely invincible. He leads the way. 5 laps, these semi-finals. He comes down now towards paddock. And Chrissy Palmer doing his level best to get clear of Brett Harris, and Stephen Jones running in third. Now Adam Sargent's up to 4th, so he has made a bit of progress up from the back of the grid. He was just ever so slightly hidden as they blasted off the line, but he is there and looking to make progress. The cars working their way across the loose at Chestons Drift. It's not as bumpy as it used to be. It's fast, it's flat, but it's still that change in surface. And Chrissy Palmer flicks the car through the Devil's Elbow. They can dart left and right. Very easy cars to fling around, very spectacular, and it's why the drivers absolutely love them. Big lock-up from Stephen Jones there. Good to have him back because he was missing at Croft. He's been a front runner in RX150s over the last few seasons, and now he makes the run downhill once more. Inching up onto the back of Brett Harris, brother Jake, busy in supercars here this weekend, and across the loose they come then. Way up the curve. That's a pretty high curb, even in a supercar. In one of these RX150s, it's like a big ramp. The gap second to third is coming down, though. Stephen Jones inching up onto the back and now perhaps ready to make a move for second place. Let's see, across the loose they come. He goes to the inside line, the gap is there, and through goes Jones, up into second spot now. He moves himself up past Brett Harris as they head uphill once again. But while they've been squabbling like this, so Chrissy Palmer has just gone away up the road. They turn their way downhill, and Palmer, the dominant driver in RX150s now for a number of seasons, continues to illustrate just why. Second generation racer as well, and somebody else with a good motorsport pedigree, Brett Harris, getting it all wrong coming through paddock. Dad races, brother races, but there, Brett getting all crossed up. So Palmer is away and gone up the road. There is the recovering Brett Harris running third. Stephen Jones between them now. Across the loose once again goes Brett Harris, back onto tarmac, down the Dover slope, and then at the Devil's Elbow. It's a tricky corner, and you climb uphill. Adam Sargent running on his own now. He's in 4th place, so he's made a little bit of progress, but as long as he qualifies, that is the main aim. Lydden is busy this weekend for British Rallycross, not only in terms of drivers on track, but happily for the number of fans as well. And Stephen Jones is about to join them. He gets it all wrong coming through paddock, approaching the chicane, so he loses second place there. Up and past him goes Brett Harris. So Jones, having worked so hard to take second place, slides back down again and falls into 3rd position. Chrissy Palmer it is leading the way. He's going to win it, surely. Now look at the margin he's got over everybody else. He's at the hairpin before they've come out of the Devil's Elbow at the bottom of the hill. At the top of Hairy Hill is Brett Harris, and there is Chrissy Palmer getting closer now to honours in this first semi-final. Fastest in Q1, fastest in Q2, fastest in Q3, and Chrissy Palmer wins the first semi-final here at Lydden. Chrissy Palmer from Brett Harris, the top 2, Stephen Jones 3rd, and Adam Sargent 4th, with Georgia Shields 5th, and it's Mitchell Flaherty, the one non-starter. We're ready for semi-final 2 here. John Ward is the man on pole position, and he has been the real thorn in the side of Chrissy Palmer today. Jake Taylor with him at the front, Larry Sargent and Richard Moore on row 2. On board with Jake Taylor. Down towards Chestnut's Drift he goes for the first time, but John Ward it is then. He leads the way. BTRDA Rallycross champion, taking part in RX150s this year. And he has gone very strongly at Croft, a circuit he doesn't know that well, and of course he's still learning about these RX150s, whereas many of those around him have got seasons worth of experience under their belt. So Ward leads uphill. Now, is he going to be able to take on Chrissy Palmer in the final? We shall see. Richard Moore there chases after Larry Sargent, Larry's son Adam we saw in the earlier semi-final, and now he works his way down towards paddock into the right-hander. Change of surface from tarmac onto the loose, bounce your way then through the chicane where there are those big curves ready to catch you out and hit those at the wrong angle. They can spit you across the road. Larry Sargent, Sergeant Major, goes across Chestnut's Drift loose section with Richard Moore sitting there behind him looking to try to find a way through. Now, Kirk Langley missing from the grid, so as long as these four finish, they're going to get through into the final. Uphill they go, on board with Jake Taylor. He's done some rallying as well as Rallycross. Turns his way into the hairpin, chasing after John Ward, but that gap looks like it's just a little bit too great. The Mondello champion fending him off as they run once more downhill. Lose all of the road as they turn their way through paddock, across the loose, and now flick through the chicane. Ward with enough in hand and looking forward now to taking on Palmer in the final. On board with Jake Taylor, hard at work here. Barely does an RX150 go in a straight line. They're light, they've got bags of power. They are great fun to drive, and you can see why people come into these and don't really want to progress. They've been a big hit at Rallycross events for a number of seasons now, and Jake Taylor hoping to kickstart his Rallycross career through RX150s. Now the fight's on for third. Larry Sargent has got Richard Moore up behind him as they now work their way to the hairpin. Everybody with the same base car, so therefore they're very evenly matched. It all comes down to driver ability. Through the chicane will go John Ward, on target for a win, it seems, in this semi-final. And here's the fight for third place now. Larry Sargent in the orange RX150 versus Richard Moore. And Larry Sargent having to work really hard here to hang on to the place. Turning their way through that long, long right that loops them back onto the tarmac of the Dover slope. The race leader in the meantime, John Ward, is building up the advantage nicely. He heads now up towards the hairpin as Larry Sargent still somehow hangs on to his third place. Right there with him is Richard Moore. They make the run now up towards the hairpin. Moore on the outside line. He will brake as late as he dares, but the trouble is that's a longer, slower line. He needs wide in and tight out and get the run heading downhill. The thought was there, but he didn't have the run in a straight line, so he has to slot back in behind once again. Up the curb goes Jake Taylor. Onto the loose goes Jake Taylor, but he is running second behind John Ward, and it looks as though Ward is on target for a semi-final win here. Across the loose they come. Taylor down towards the Devil's Elbow, out of which comes Ward, who is on the limit. They're spectacular cars at the best of times, the RX150s, and John Ward throws it into the hairpin, powers his way through the corner, doesn't get the back too far out of line to scrub off speed. Instead, it's neat, precise, and very effective. Darts his way now down towards paddock, turns right, avoids the unforgiving barrier on the inside, flicks it between the curb and scores the semi-final to victory as you look at Jake Taylor sliding his way through to the checkered flag. Who's going to be third? It is just going to be Larry Sargent, who has fended off Richard Moore race long. Third for Sargent, but it's a win for Ward. Semi-final 2 won by John Ward from Jake Taylor. Larry Sargent hangs on to third, Richard Moore fourth. Kurt Langley sadly not making it to the grid. That teases up nicely for the final. The RX150 final about to get underway with Chrissy Palmer at the front with John Ward and Brett Harris for company. Jake Taylor and Stephen Jones are on row 2. Larry Sargent, Richard Moore and Adam Sargent at the back of the grid. The grid is complete. 4 laps of racing for the final. The lights go green, we're racing. A good start made by Richard Moore from the back row, but Chrissy Palmer is away like a robber's dog. Palmer hits the loose in the lead. Ward is second, Harris third, and the white RX150 Stephen Jones, he's on the outside line of Richard Moore, who elbows his way through there. The Sergeants are running together next in the queue in the dust, and there's also there, look, Jake Taylor in the green RX150. You're on board with him. He made a bad start and he's got work to do. He's sideways at the devil's elbow. You're normally sideways in an RX150, to be fair, as the leaders battle their way uphill, and the drama there, that's Harris getting all sideways. He survived, but he's lost momentum and he's in danger of losing places. Away and gone is John Ward as downhill come the race leaders. Chrissy Palmer leads the way up the inside behind Richard Moore. There was going Jake Taylor. Look, you'll see there the green RX150 ahead of both of the Sergeants. Through they come to hit the loose once again. Chrissy Palmer leads the way. Try and say that with a surprised tone in your voice, because Chrissy Palmer has been the dominant driver. It is a real shame that there isn't more budget and there isn't somebody willing to take a gamble on Chrissy and put him into a supercar, because he would really be an asset to the supercar class, no question. There, Jake Taylor gaining ground on the inside. He's ahead of Richard Moore, but he goes wide, and that's going to give Moore the chance to fight back. Look left, wait and see a flash of blue. No, Taylor fends him off on the run up to the hairpin now. Through they turn. With Palmer up front, there is Jake Taylor chipping his way through the order. But Chrissy Palmer leads John Ward as they work their way through the chicane. Palmer vaults over the curb and now heads towards the loose at Cheston's Drift once more. How are the Sergeants getting on? Well, they're almost together, they're almost driving into each other. One gets sideways. Larry Sargent ahead of Adam for the moment, but they almost came to grief there. And somebody that has come to grief is Richard Moore. He's facing the wrong way. So that is going to be a yellow flag zone. The leaders work their way up the hill. Chrissy Palmer leading John Ward. Now to the eye, is that gap coming down just ever so slightly? Battle on behind, Brett Harris versus Stephen Jones, and there's the yellow. It's at the top of the hill, in fact, where Richard Moore's car is stranded, so they've all worked a way round. Harris versus Jones. They battled earlier on in the day, and Jones made a mistake and slithered off the road in the semi-finals. Now, can he find a way back ahead? The leaders are about to start the last lap. Look in the background as well. Jake Taylor, having worked his way up through the traffic, going great guns now. Jake Taylor closing on this fight for third place. They turn their way out of Cheston's. There are the leaders, and the gap is definitely coming down. And Palmer might have a problem because he's slow and he's under attack. Half a lap to go, they touch, and round goes Palmer. The gap was coming down anyway, but there is contact that tips Chrissy Palmer into a spin. And is the unthinkable about to happen? Chrissy Palmer defeated in RX150s. He may have had a mechanical problem, which was why John Ward was getting closer and closer. But the bigger problem is the contact that's tipped Palmer into a spin. So there, with damage at the front, is John Ward. He is going to come through to win in RX150s for the first time. We've got a new winner for the first time in over 12 months. It's John Ward. The final at Lydden, won by John Ward in the RX150s ahead of Brett Harris and Stephen Jones. Jake Taylor fourth from the Sergeants. Chrissy Palmer fails to finish. John Ward heads the championship now ahead of Chrissy Palmer. Jake Taylor third from Brett Harris and Kirk Langley, with Adam Sargent rounding out the top six.